You've entered BOOKSTORM with Kristen Civiletto and me, Chris Storm. This is a podcast devoted to best-selling books that matter, books that make a difference. We're diving down deep with beloved authors about their stories. We're exposing hot-button topics and heartfelt themes, the issues that affect each of us in our own lives, as siblings, parents, partners, friends, as human beings. We're braving new ideas, fresh thoughts, hard lessons, and important truths. Those kinds of things that stay with us long after we turn the last page and close the book. Well, welcome back, book lovers. You're going to be very excited about the guest we have with us here today. You know the name Stuart Woods. He has written 90 novels over his career. We regret that he had passed away, but we're very excited that we have someone who is continuing his legacy. And we are here with Brett Battles, who there is no one who could do a finer job continuing these Stuart Woods books. Welcome, here, Brett. So happy to have you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here.
And before we get started, I want to tell our listeners a little bit about you, because you have quite an impressive writing career of your own. You have written 40 novels. Am I right with that?
Closer to 50 now, but yes.
Wow. Some novellas, some short stories. You are a New York Times best-selling author, all your own. You've been nominated for not one, but 3 prestigious Barry Awards. And I saw that you won Best Thriller in 2009 for Deceived.
Right. For the Deceived, correct.
Quite an honor. You're living in Southern California, and you have, I love that you put this in your bio, a little bit something personal about your family. You got 3 great kids, Ronan, Fiona, and Kira, who are all adults now. And you said, how did that happen? And Kristen and I can relate to that. Where does that go and how'd that happen?
Yeah, that's a big question. I still don't have the answer to that.
Time goes too quick. And also you have a neurotic, paranoid, cute Australian Shepherd, Maggie, that's more of a developing relationship. Is that right?
Still ongoing, and she's almost 11. So we're working on it. And she is put away so that she doesn't disturb us right now.
Okay, well, I had 2 grandpups here over Thanksgiving, and they were quite a couple of characters, but I'm not going to say any more in case they're listening. And Kristen is a huge dog lover over there. She's got a couple giant, I call them wolves, but I guess they're not a wolf,
Fair
right,
enough.
Kristen?
Not wolves.
Not wolves.
So anyway, let me just say, now there's one other funny story, but I want you to tell it. You had on your bio, it's hysterical. In the 6th grade, you convinced your teacher to give everyone an assignment. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, I didn't make a lot of friends in class with this, but I did convince my teacher, Mr. Hodges. I convinced him to assign us to write a full story that was like more than 10 pages. This is a 6th grade, so I was not the most popular person after doing that, I think. What really made me mad was that, I turned in my 35-page story. Granted, bigger letters, and it wasn't quite the same as a 35-page story now. And I got an A- on the project, and some other person, this other girl in class, got an A. And I was just, I'm a little I'm still miffed to this day. I mean, it was my idea.
It was your idea, but
why
but
did I get second, basically?
Doesn't matter, because now she sees you're a famous author and you've won the Best Thriller 2009 and all of these Barry Award nominations. And there you go. You won in the long run.
I hope. Knock on wood.
That's awesome. Well, we're here, as Chris mentioned, to talk about Golden Hour. And this is one of the books in the legacy from Stuart Woods. And I want to tell our listeners just a little bit of what's happening in the story. I won't give away any spoilers. And if you want to add anything, of course, we would love that at the end.
Sure.
In the story, we meet again with CIA operative Teddy Fay. And
former CIA.
That's right. And these days he's working in Hollywood.
Right. And he's a Hollywood producer living under the name Billy Barnett. Yeah.
Billy Barnett. And when we meet him, he's about to embark on basically a press tour for the movie. It's worldwide. He
Right.
sounded a little excited about the whole thing.
Right.
But just as he's about to leave, the former a director of the CIA shows up, Lance Cabot. And of course,
Not one of
anytime,
Teddy's favorite people, but go
right?
ahead.
And when that person shows up, you know that something big is,
Yeah.
on the horizon. And in fact, Lance basically says, we're going to need you to be involved in a mission while you're on your press tour, because something that you were involved in a long time ago, Operation Golden Hour, somebody is coming back for possibly revenge. They don't know, but we do know that people are disappearing and getting killed.
Right.
So now we've got Teddy, who's got this dual role, something
Yeah,
that Teddy.
he's got two things to do while he's over there.
That's right. So
Balance it.
now, and I loved it because as he's going to different places throughout Europe, for example, we've got fans, we've got all kinds of excited people coming
Yeah.
forward, but we also have people who are intent on danger and harm.
Right.
And he's got a race against the clock. Did you want to add anything to that background?
No, I think you've very, very nicely summed it up
Awesome.
without giving anything away. So that's all good.
Okay, well, I'm going to start with one of the most intriguing aspects to this story. I'm going to clue in our readers is the idea that there could be ex-CIA, ex-FBI, ex-military living amongst us in normal lives. I think some of this is true. I've heard this from
Well,
other
of
people.
course, yeah. I mean, they got to live somewhere, right?
God listen. And I'm happy they're here, and I hope one is next door.
Right.
But it made the reader feel a little bit safer throughout this whole thing. Then we see some of your characters. They come into some danger, and they're able to almost instinctively transition back to that CIA, FBI role. And I had to ask you, as the author and the creator of these characters, is it ever even possible to leave that instinct of self-defense and become a part of the normal world, or do they carry this with them forever?
Well, first of all, I do need to say that actually Stuart created the characters that are in this, not myself. But um, uh, I feel very close kinship with them now that I am the caretaker of. But yeah, I mean, how can you turn these things off? That's part of the part of what you've trained for. And Teddy's particularly good at everything that he does. Very intelligent, master of disguise, all of those things. He hasn't lost a step on anything he needs to do. So, and he's not afraid to do the dirty job that needs to be done too, if need be.
I like that dual personality. And I just want to
Yeah.
say for our listeners, you actually did work closely with Stuart Woods while he was alive on 1.5 books, but you started the last one with
Well,
him.
I worked when I was when I was first asked to write with Stuart. It was the first Teddy Fay book that I was involved in called Obsession, and so we worked at that. We communicated a lot. A lot of that was digitally, but with through the editors and everything, and then we got the book done. And unfortunately, he passed away like a couple weeks after the final book was delivered. And I thought that was going to be my one and only adventure into the Stuart Woods world. But then a few months later, we were contacted by his agent and his estate that he had been in the middle of writing his next Stone Barrington book, and Stone is his giant series. That's the series that basically all the other series hang off. And they asked if I could finish that for him. And they gave me basically 2 months to do that in. And I said, sure, I'll do it. And I did it. And that was a lot of fun. And then they asked me back. And now I'm writing both series, the Stone series and continuing the Teddy Fay series too, which is very exciting.
Yeah, thank you for continuing that legacy, and you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
We
I
feel like
appreciate
he's still writing through you and with you, but you've added a little of your own personal talent to it. I just want to insert that for our listeners.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Brett, I want to ask you about the opposite of continuing a legacy
Sure.
and loyalty, and that is revenge. And here we see that these assassinations had maybe some political goals underlying it. I'm not going to give away too much, but the motivation for at least one of these was very, very personal. And I wanted to ask you about that because if that level of wanting to get back at somebody becomes an obsession, is that where you start making mistakes? Is it something that can
Oh,
take
of
over your life?
course. Of course. Obsessions are always just they're just ripe for making mistakes as far as I'm concerned. That's where, most of your people who are intend to do evil mess up is they just become so obsessed with doing something that maybe they should just let go of that and go do something else. Um, but it also makes it more interesting because it makes it more personal and a personal um, uh, um, retribution or revenge or whatever you want to call it. Anything personal like that is much more intriguing from a reader standpoint, from a writer standpoint, and just from a human standpoint. Is if somebody's doing stuff without any of that behind it and is all just very cold and calculating, yeah, that's interesting to a point. But at some point that just becomes ugh, you know. This way you can kind of go, oh, get into what's happening and into um, why the revenge, why the obsession, all that stuff. I enjoy that.
Yeah. And it's sure a fine line between, wanting justice for something and obsession and
Oh,
taking over your
absolutely.
life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're all human and we all become obsessed with something at one time or another. Hopefully not to the, murderous extent, but
I want to talk a little bit more about Teddy. For our listeners, formerly CIA, who supposedly had died. Now, he was an expert in disguise. This fascinated me, so much so that his romantic interest didn't even recognize him. So he went under a couple different, what is that? Yeah.
that's because she met the two versions of him. So
Yeah.
he didn't realize they were the same. So,
It was pretty cool. He went under Teddy Fay, who's gone. He
right.
went under Billy Barnett.
Correct.
And then he also went under the award-winning actor Mark Weldon.
That is
So,
correct too.
so it was cool
Absolutely.
to watch him slip in and out of these different disguises. And it wasn't
Yeah.
just his outfit, it was his mannerism,
Right.
everything about him.
Everything's different.
What could,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah,
Sorry.
can you expand upon your research into disguises? Like
Mm.
how could we all assimilate into some of this a little bit?
That's a great question. I've been involved in Hollywood and theater and everything throughout my life. So I have not a lot, but I have some um, uh, tangential experience in that area of just changing and doing it. But to me, it's just a fascinating idea of what Stuart set up of Teddy, who actually you can see the evolution of Teddy through because he starts out in the Barrington books and he is not a Hollywood producer. Billy Barnett does not even exist until much later appearance. And then, he becomes Billy Barnett and then he becomes Mark Weldon, which Mark Weldon is a very interesting character to me. He's not playing such a big role in Golden Hour, but in the past, he started out as just a stunt coordinator kind of thing because that's Teddy also knows a lot about stuff. So, okay, well, we'll put you in here as a stunt coordinator, and suddenly got into a role, and now he's a big actor, and now he can't go out in public as Mark Weldon, which he used to use his Mark Weldon persona to just be able to go out in public and nobody know who he was. Now he can't even do that. So now I can't use that aspect of that character. But that's interesting to me that these different characters of Teddy's each have their own growth or their own changes that are occurring and everything. So it's really fascinating and fun group of characters all in one person to play with.
It's very fun. And it's also something that sometimes we can only do so well in fiction, not translated to the real world. And that's the fun of fiction, to be
Right,
able to
right.
go those different places.
Hmm.
Lots of fun.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
I actually want to pick up there and ask kind of a related question. Jillian used technology,
Mhm.
including autonomous news and record searches, to help find her target. And I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you, in this day and age with facial recognition and even gait analysis, is it possible for a master of identity switches to outsmart technology? And what does this mean for all of us when we want to, go in a new direction with our lives, with our look, with our career, with our persona?
Right. Well, as far as any of us know, I don't work for the NSA, so I can't really speak whether they can or to their abilities. But I do know that their facial recognition has come a long way. The ability to track things has come a long way. There are also still ways. My understanding is to um, uh, fake out these things to a certain extent. Um, What that extent is, I don't know. And again, we're talking fiction. So in the fiction, it's going to be whatever I want it to be. But in the real world, that's a question for the real Lance Cabot and the other members of the CIA and NSA to find out exactly what they can do. But I mean, it's interesting. This, people, we can track ourselves on our phones. We can track just, you get one of those air tags and people are finding that people have put them onto their cars and are following them and stuff. That's scary stuff. But it's a much different world than it was 15 years ago, for sure. And yeah, I who knows where it all ends or if it ever does.
Yeah. Well, I love that you were playing with this idea of identity throughout
Mhm.
the story because, again, we all are wrestling with that at all times, right? How do we want to improve ourselves or
Absolutely.
fresh start, whatever?
Absolutely. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
in many ways, I mean, the Teddy Fay books are they're fun adventure romps of these interesting, fun characters, but they're also exactly that. They're all about identity because he's got three, you know, and what is real and what is not. And I mean, that is an underlying theme throughout the series, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we have loved talking to you about this book, and I want to show our
Oh, great.
readers this really cool cover.
Thank
And
you.
and I want to tell them too how to get in touch with you. You have a really great website, brettbattles.com, and you have a newsletter that you connect
I
with your
do.
listeners. You're on Facebook, on X, Goodreads, on Instagram. You're very engaged.
Right. No longer on X, so we can take
Okay.
that.
We're going to X out X.
X out X, but I'm on the others. I'm actually also on Blue Sky and Threads, but I haven't really been posting there yet. Just kind of getting the lay of the land. So,
Oh, excellent. And can you give us a clue maybe of what's coming next for you in your writing?
absolutely. I literally before like an hour ago was putting the finishing touches on the edit for the next Stone Barrington novel, which is called Finders Keepers, which will be out in June. And tomorrow I will be jumping back into the outline for the next Teddy Fay book, which I will start writing within the next couple of weeks. That'll be out, I assume, next December. I don't really know the time frame on that one yet.
Yeah.
Uh, so those are both in progress. And plus, I always working on my own books, but these other books are taking up a lot of my time. So those my own books I have to fit in where I can in between. But it just keeps me really busy, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations. Those are exciting things to have on the
Thank you.
horizon. And again, thank you so much for coming to
All right.
talk to us about this fantastic book.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Can't wait
You
for
as
the
well.
next one.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. That was a lot of fun talking to Brett Battles. And I'll tell you what, this idea of incognito and different identities, what do you think about that, Kristen? It sort of blows your mind, doesn't it?
It sure does. Is there something I need to know, Chris?
Hey, don't you think I was going to say to him, we all take a little different identity. You know, we're different people. We're a mom, we're a writer, we're a podcaster, we're a lawyer, whatever. Like we do this a little to a small extent, but that's the fun of fiction, isn't it? To go some crazy place with it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Where
he's a lot of fun, and that comes through actually in these stories as well, because there is a lighthearted aspect to it. So very cool. Well, let me tell our listeners about some other fantastic authors that we have coming up. We have Victor Mythos, The Silent Watcher, Alex Hay, The Queen of Fives, Fiona Davis, The Stolen Queen, Carter Wilson, Tell Me What You Did, Jill Shalvis, Better Than Friends, Mark Greaney, Midnight Black, Andrews and Wilson, Defense Protocol, Marshall Karp, Don't Tell Me How to Die, and Tess Gerritsen, The Summer Guests, Robert Cray, The Big Empty, Brian Freeman writing for Robert Ludlum, The Born Vendetta. Robert Dugoni, he's coming back with Hold Strong. You'll recognize a lot of those names. They've been on our show before, and they are wonderful, wonderful people and authors. We've enjoyed every single interview with them. So, listeners, we want you to stay on our radar too. We love that you are spreading our socials, our links. You know that we're on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, on TikTok, and you can find us also on YouTube, where we have fantastic videos with all of these authors. We have a whole bunch of them there, so we would love for you to check that out. And of course, you can repost them and do whatever you want. Until next time, listeners, one of the best ways to brave the storm is to dive down deep into life-changing fiction.